buying a home can be a very, very scary process, especially if you're the first one in your circle of influence to do that, right? If everybody that you know is a renter and you said, hey, I'm gonna buy that house, people might look at you as like, oh, you're crazy. Why would you want to do that? So you're saying you're going to have this huge mortgage. You're going to have to pay property tax for the rest of your life. You have to buy property insurance. If something happens with the property, something goes wrong, that's on you. Like, you got to do that. Like, and people are like, oh, I don't want that. I'd rather have that responsibility go to the landlord. And I'll basically just reap the benefit of having a roof over my house. But that basically means what? You're not gaining equity, right? You don't have the benefits that a homeowner does.
Welcome back to our podcast. We got a special guest with us today, Zhemyr. He's a good friend of ours. Zhemyr, how about you start with just introducing yourself?
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure to always be here with you guys, spend some time with you, and just really reflect on life, right? Our passions. So Zhemyr Diaz, man, on life, let's see here. I'm an individual. I'm a parent of two amazing little boys. I'm a husband of an amazing individual that happens to be one of my mentors, one of my heroes in life, and a son to an amazing mother who recently turned 83 years old. Above that, let's see here. I'm a big fan of giving back. I'm a big fan of helping the community. Just based on the struggles that I had coming up, it's something that I'm passionate for. So glad to align myself with Avance Latino, Ideal CDC, and the work that you guys do.
Thank you for coming back. Thank you for accepting the invitation. It's always exciting to have people like yourself join us and share your story and talk about some interesting topics that we're going to be talking about today. And you've had a pretty, successful career. We've had a lot of conversations about it. It's been very, very great to hear more about that. And I'd like to hear what are like the most important things to consider when considering a career. What does that even look like for someone that's just like, well, I'm in high school, I'm in college. What does that look like?
Yeah. So today, as always, I like to reflect on my own experiences, right? Many times mistakes. I think that we learn more from mistakes, and I encourage everyone to please learn from others' mistakes. We don't have to make those same mistakes again. That said, though, we are going to make mistakes, and as I reflect back on careers and how do you choose a career, I think you have to really take a look at what you're passionate for. Not only what you're passionate for now, but what you see yourself doing for at least a couple decades. I know that many times initially you're in college, you want to start living life and you focus on money. What's going to get me paid, right? And then you get into that job and you find yourself, 9 to 5 and you're grinding away and you're like, I'm not really enjoying life. So I think it's a matter of understand what your passions are as you're coming up in life. Understand the fact that this might have to be a situation where you're going to be in for decades. And really, are you going to find pleasure in doing that for decades? I would say it's not so much about the specific role or job. I would consider the entire industry. Would this be an industry that really aligns with what you want to do in life, with your mission, personal mission, with your personal vision? If you haven't started thinking about that, then I would definitely encourage the individual to start thinking about that. What am I passionate for? And do I see myself doing this down the line? Again, not so much for money initially, that will come, but in terms of passion and drive.
Yeah, it's so important because we know a couple of people ourselves, young people that we work with that they just graduated. They have this like perfect career in mind, but it's a career that pays a lot. It's all these great stuff, benefits. It's like amazing, but it requires all this experience and they're not getting it because they're applying, but it's like they understand the career, but I think what you said is the industry, the long-term picture is like maybe you're not going to get it right away. You got to start, somewhere down here, but it'll eventually go up here.
100%.
Yeah, no, I think that's super, super important. And how can a young person that's watching set up their lives for financial success, and maybe what does that look like? I know it's different for everyone, but how can they start? What steps should they start taking today, if they're young?
You know what? I think as I reflect back on my younger self, it goes back to just not knowing what you don't know. Many times we're influenced by what we see around us, our parents. Specifically myself as an immigrant coming from Cuba at the age of 7 years old, I pictured my life being similar to what my parents were doing. They did not make a whole ton of money. They were making right at minimum wage or if not above that. And really, as we think of ourselves down the line, many times we reflect on that influence that we have around us. So for me, as I reflect back, it's about well, how do I educate myself? How do I look beyond the four walls that I have around at home, around at school? And how do I see myself having impact on others down the line? I think it all stems from there. But really, it goes back to just understanding what it is that I want to do and how do I get there? Because it may not necessarily be exactly what you have seen coming up in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I liked what you shared about your parents came from Cuba, so the immigrants from another country. It's a new world, right, for them. It's a new language, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to that. And they're like, what can I do to be different? How can I, go a little bit further than what they did? They're able to provide for me now. You feel like that. I feel like there's a lot of pressure too as well with that.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, look, parents come in and they come into this country. And parents' main focus is what? Taking care of their family, taking care of their kids. The type of lifestyle that they lived in their previous country might be totally different than what they live here, right? They may have had a lot more family around, a lot more support around. The values, the priorities might have been different. They get to this country and they want to focus on what? That American dream by the way that they perceive it, and that's moving forward. However, they may not always have resources available or understand what resources they have available to them. So what does that mean? It may mean that now you start school and your parents don't know that there's additional resources at school that can help you, possibly with tutoring, possibly with guiding you for a specific career. And again, all that you go back home and you see your parents going through their work, their struggles, and you think, man, this will be the lifestyle that I'm also going to inherit. Possibly a little bit better, but you may not really think at an expanded level of what type of impact you may be able to have on others and on your own personal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way I see it, they're like passing the torch to you, like the baton, now it's your turn, and it's like, we did all this for you, let's see where you can go now.
Right.
And it's exciting. It's very motivating, at least for me. So we talked about careers and what to consider in a career. A good question to ask that probably a lot of people always, the money, right? Should salary matter when choosing a career?
There's a lot of debate around this topic, right? I think that money should not be the only thing that you pursue. You should not just look at a job and say, I want to go after that job because of how much money I make. But is money important? Most definitely. I think money is definitely important. We live in a life where we have bills. We live in a life where we have expenses. If I have passion for a specific type of job, and I'm going to be capped at, for example, $50,000 a year, but I want to live in Southern California, and I also want to be a homeowner, well, does that really align with what I want to do? So if I live in Southern California, I make $50K a year, the max that I may be able to afford in today's market, in terms of rates and everything else, might be right about $200,000. What can you buy in Southern California right now for $200,000, right? Versus if you're saying, okay, well, I'm looking at possibly a career down the line, not initially on day one, but where I can get into comfortably making $150,000. Well, what does that do for you? It provides you more flexibility in the lifestyle you want to have. Going back to Southern California again, now at $150,000, you may be able to afford around $600,000 for a home. And that's for an individual. Obviously, there's a union, you get married, whatnot, there's, two incomes, that changes. But going back to should income matter, I think income definitely should matter due to the fact that we all want to have a specific lifestyle. Again, not the main thing, not the priority, but something to be considered for sure.
Yeah, and that's important, the lifestyle, because I think a lot of people think about that, like you said, about buying a house, or like, do you want to go on vacations? Is there a certain type of car you want to have? Do you want to give back to your parents? Like, what are you trying to do? And I think that's super important to think about. And that's good you said, like, not initially, because it's like, most jobs don't start off at 150, but like if there's a career path where you can get to that or more, because with inflation and everything, I feel like eventually, like my kids starting is going to be 150 or something. It's going to be crazy, 20, 30 years from now. But
agreed.
So yeah, super important with choosing basically, yes, money does matter because bills, all that matters. Definitely does matter a lot. What are some steps that, someone that's watching that wants to take the corporate ladder, the corporate route? They want to work for, like a Fortune 500 company, want to work for a big company. They want to move up the ladder. They want to be, an executive. They want to be a district manager, supervisor, stuff like that, where it's like, you don't get that job right away, but you have to it's different steps leading to that. In your experience, we've had conversations that you've been able to work up the corporate ladder. What are some tips you would say?
Yeah, I think that, again, going back to my learnings, my mistakes, it's about learning as early as possible. And what do I mean by that? Understand what resources your specific company has for you. Many large institutions are going to have what are called ERGs, employee resource groups. These are great platforms for you to be able to go out and connect. Connect with like-minded people, people that might look like yourself, that are Latino, that are African American, that are Asian. But at the same time, they may be from different lines of businesses. And as you go out and you explore different opportunities through these different events, you get to realize, oh man, I'm in one specific line of business, but this large corporation that I'm part of has various other parts that I may now be interested in. So the fact that you can get out there and network, that's critical. So networking is one. Number two, I would say educate yourself with what other lines of businesses are within that organization. Many times we start working for one specific company and we may feel like we're stuck within these four walls where, the only career path might be our direct supervisor or direct manager. And then after that, his or her direct manager. But again, we fail to realize what other options are available within that organization. I would also say next would be having a mentor. A mentor that is at a place where you want to be in the future. A mentor that has also possibly struggled, that has made some mistakes. A mentor that is doing well for themselves. They can say, hey, Zhemyr, you want to actually go this route. And whenever you experience X, Y, Z, here's the route you want to take, or here's exactly what I did. So you learn from that individual. I talked about earlier learning from mistakes. And if you can learn from others' mistakes, by all means, you want to do that. But there's another thing, though, and that's having not just a mentor, but having a sponsor. A mentor is someone that, again, is going to guide you along the way, but a sponsor is someone that already believes in you. A sponsor is somebody that believes in the work and the work ethic that you bring and the value that you add to the organization. And then whenever they are in a meeting, they're in a conversation with others, they can say, look, this guy here, he's your guy, right? As this opening comes up, you definitely want to consider this person because of this and this and this, whatever they've seen that you've done in the past. So again, networking for sure, having that mentor, but also having that sponsor is critical.
Yeah, having that champion, right? That ambassador for Zhemyr.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, it's most of the people that I've met that have, got a job like right out of college, a great job, is because they knew someone. They had that connection compared to just sending your resume and they don't know who you are. I mean, it's good to do that, but like having that, connection, relationship with someone is always going to be better. And I know you mentioned in our last podcast that even taking those opportunities to risk young, I think it was you or Benny that mentioned like you had an opportunity to go up faster, but you had to move to another state or something like that.
Yeah, most definitely. I would say, look, if you are at a position in your life where you have flexibility, take advantage of it. If you're mobile, that'll be critical to your upward mobility. I myself refuse to move out of state, right? And did that hinder how quickly I got to a specific place in my career? Yeah, it most definitely did. So if you are not bound by a family, if you're not bound by other things that keep you to a specific geography, be willing to move around. The more flexible you are, the easier it'll be for you to move up. Now, mind you, of course, it's about adding value. We need to understand that we move up by adding value at a larger scale. You got to be good at the job that you're in at this point in time. But at the same time, if now you get tapped in the shoulder or you hear of an opportunity, it might be, across the state or across the country, and you're okay doing that, know that's going to catapult your ability to move up faster.
Yeah, the importance of being mobile, being flexible and young. Like someone like myself who, I don't know if I'd leave California. I love it. My whole family's here. But yeah, taking those risks because I don't have a mortgage yet. I don't have a family yet. We don't have kids yet. I'm going to be married. I'm going to be getting married soon. But yeah, definitely. And what are some tips that you would say to negotiate salary? Because there's so much people we talk about. They get their first job right out of college or they don't try to negotiate at all, and even though like there's a salary range, let's just say 60 to 80, and they offer them 60 and they take the 60. They don't negotiate.
Yeah, so one of the cool things I like about California at this point in time, a law went into place not long ago that requires that salary ranges are posted. So you're not going into things blindly. And I love that. Because now you say you're getting out of college and you're looking for that job. And exactly like you said, you see that range between 60 and 80, for example. And all of a sudden you get that offer letter and it's 60, right? And that might happen.
Yeah.
So what do? I think it's not so much about saying, yes, I'm going to take the first thing that becomes available, but understanding that recruiters expect that back and forth. I personally didn't do that. I personally, right out of college, I took the first offer and I was like, oh, I'm working for this big organization. That's awesome. I'm so glad to have my very first job. And in fact, I know that it's more than what my buddy was offered at a totally different industry. So I already felt like I was, starting at a decent place. But then what happens? Individuals get hired down the line and you find out, oh, they got paid more. Well, that individual may have taken the time to negotiate a little bit, to say, okay, well, that's great that you're offering me 60, but look, here's what I bring to the table. And, I'm asking 65, 70. Now, understand that range is there for flexibility, upward mobility, and so someone doesn't feel stagnant over the course of their role in that position. But at the same time, I would say empower yourself. Understand that you're bringing value to the table, and no recruiter is going to be offended if you respectfully say, hey, thank you so much for this offer, but here's basically what I'm countering at. Might be 5, 7K, 10K higher. So again, just not accepting, but educating yourself and being confident enough to ask for more.
Yeah, that's super important, because maybe someone might take it wrong and say, so if I get 60, should I just say, no, I want more, I want 80, But it's all about being respectful and showing why, the value, basically telling them why you're worth, 65, 70, 75, 80, whatever it is.
And if we can just add a little bit to that, look, if you don't have the professional experience, you may be able to leverage maybe some things you did at school, where you part of certain organizations, part of certain clubs, where you part of a specific project at school that added value to the entire campus, to the student body, to the community around you. Because we may say, well, I don't feel empowered to ask for more money because I don't have the experience. Well, really look in and leverage what experience you do have. You may have had an internship, right? And you want to talk about what impact you had during your tenure there. So it's not so much about, look, this is my first professional job, I have nothing to reference, but really dig in and take a look at what you've done in the past through part-time jobs, internships, and even classes and clubs and organizations, and what impact you had there.
Yeah, most definitely. Learn from our mistakes, because I did the same thing as you. I thought it was like, okay, good pay, it's starting, no negotiating. They called me over the phone. Yes. Didn't even let them finish. But yeah, as soon as I started working, I found out of other people that started working and they're making more than me. And I was like, what's going on here? Why are they getting paid more? We're just both graduated. What's up with this? But
right.
I didn't negotiate too. So learn from our mistakes. What are some steps you took to buy your first house? I know you shared with me that your first house, or one of your first houses, you got a duplex.
Yeah.
Right? And that's always that's very popular, especially on social media. Oh, I have a duplex, I have a triplex, and it looks easy. Obviously, it's not easy, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Look, my journey into homeownership was one of being rushed into it. I want to say that I definitely wanted to become a homeowner. At that point in time, I was a mortgage originator myself, and I basically understood what the industry was like. Now, mind you, I didn't have a ton of experience. I think I was less than a year into my career at that point in time. But I was really forced into homeownership because I was renting a house, and the landlord passed away. The son that inherited the property knocked on my door and said, hey, you got to move because I'm selling this property. I don't want to deal with the headaches of rentals. And instead of me saying, okay, well, cool, I'll just move, I said, well, let's chat. Let's see what we could do so that I can buy this property from you. Now, mind you, this was back in 2002. So times have definitely changed, right? But one thing that's consistent is being creative. At that point in time, what I ended up doing was an 80-15-5. What does that mean? 80% first, 15% second, and 5% third, which was a owner-backed note, a loan from the owner. And really what I came up with out of pocket was the closing costs. So now, is that possible in today's age? Look, I'm not going to say yes, maybe in certain locations with certain lenders, but the fact is, I would say don't give up, because there are grants out there. If you actually look closely, there's a number of different cities that are offering grants. There's state grants that are available. And if you really look and do your homework, you might find that what you're trying to do may be possible right now. Now, that said, in terms of also buying the first home, there's a number of different things that you also have to do. Not just finding the property, not understanding eventually once I'm ready, how am I going to finance it? But credit. Credit's critical, right? You can start establishing credit at an early age. There's a number of different ways in which you could do that. You could do that by being an authorized user on your parents' account. If you have that luxury, not everybody does, I get it. You could do so by starting a secure credit card, by just doing research and finding out how can I get my credit started. But the earlier you start your credit, the more empowered you'll be. Credit's one. The other one is also savings. Savings is also critical. As I said, I was able to pay for the closing costs with the savings that I had, now with just about a year of work. Not everybody does that, because what do? We leave college, we were stressed all this time, we get into the real world, we start making money, and what do we want to do? We want to live life in the moment. We may want to party, enjoy, travel a little bit, and that's great. But again, it's about having those goals aligned, mapped out. What is going to be that short-term, midterm, long-term goal? And if home ownership is within that, well, what are you doing for that? And again, understand that credit and savings toward a down payment needs to be part of that for sure.
Yeah, save that money, right? It's super important to save that money, and especially in today's that it's possible. It definitely is. A person in our family just got into a house, and a couple other people. A lot of things that we tend to do is connect them to those, down payment assistance programs, because there's a lot of them. Or there's the HUD approved, counseling agencies where they literally take the families by the hand and counsel through the whole process: credit, budget, income, everything. And it's super important that not a lot of people know about those resources.
And I think it's critical that you mentioned those, because buying a home can be a very, very scary process, especially if you're the first one in your circle of influence to do that, right? If everybody that you know is a renter and you said, hey, I'm going to buy that house, people might look at you as like, oh, you're crazy. Why would you want to do that? So you're saying you're going to have this huge mortgage. You're going to have to pay property tax for the rest of your life. You have to buy property insurance. If something happens with the property, something goes wrong, that's on you. Like, you got to do that. And people are like, oh, I don't want that. I'd rather have that responsibility go to the landlord. And I'll basically just reap the benefit of having a roof over my house. But that basically means what? You're not gaining equity, right? You don't have the benefits that a homeowner does. So I would say what you mentioned, those resources are critical. Mm-hmm. And if you do happen to be that individual that's not aligned with the knowledge, with the resources, again, find it, because they are out there. Mm-hmm. Educate yourself and have somebody take you through the path.
Yeah, most definitely. And a lot of those resources, not only are they available, it's sometimes very low cost or even free. So it's really, really great resources. What are the most common financial mistakes? You kind of already mentioned some, but what are the most common financial mistakes you think that people make, in your opinion?
Yeah, so as I reflect back, honestly, it's I did mention that I saved, and I did save toward a down payment for a house, because I knew it was going to be something that I really wanted. And honestly, again, in my case, it wasn't really the down payment; it was the closing costs. Mm-hmm. But as I look back on my own journey and that of people that are close to me, I think that a big one is not understanding the way that money should be allocated. And what I mean by that is that we now get into our professional lives. We want to live life in the moment, but we fail to really think about life in the future. Retirement, for example. Retirement, I think at this point in time, many people are working so much into their retirement age due to the fact that they don't have the proper savings. They don't have the proper retirement. And that really is founded on not starting to save for retirement early on. Mm-hmm. I think my personal take on retirement is that whatever money you make today, part of it should, of course, be for today, mm-hmm. but part of it should also be for the future, because you're funding what type of lifestyle you're going to have once you retire. And I think that a mistake that many people make once they leave college, once they start their professional lives, is that they don't think early enough about retirement. Look, you and I both know that you start early, that makes all the difference. Mm-hmm. Right? In order to catch up later for what you could have done maybe 5-10 years ago, it's going to require a massive change in how much you're saving. So if you're able to save early for retirement, I think that's critical. The other one would also be the why you don't save, And it's that many times we try to live this lifestyle that's beyond our means. We try to keep up with the Joneses, as we say, right? And the fact is, now you see that your friend bought a brand new vehicle, or they went on this expensive vacation and they had this amazing experience, and you're like, oh, I want to do the exact same thing. Well, but we don't take the time to find out, how did they afford that car? Was it maybe because their family was in a different place and they were gifted in those funds? Are you in that situation? Because if you're not and you're personally funding that vehicle, that vacation, understand you got to think about that twice. Because maybe for them, it didn't really impact their future goals. And for you, it does impact it. So I would say stay within your means. And that's not a negative thing. What that basically means is now you are empowering yourself to live that better lifestyle down the line without being stressed that you don't have enough money to do so.
Yeah, that's super important. And I know you mentioned about buying that new car. Just a couple weeks ago, my fiance got a new car, and then I got a new car. But here's a key thing: there's resources that we use. She got a car for $38,000, but she got $15,000 in free money grants. It's an electric vehicle. And so I think a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of resources, like you said, right? Take advantage of those resources and don't, limit yourself. So yeah, super, super important.
For sure.
I was just trying to copy you. You already have a Tesla. I was trying to get one too. That's all I was trying to do. Trying to be like
They're fun.
Yeah, they're really, really fun. And lastly, what are resources people can use to learn more about financial literacy in this topic? Because the very thing that people always say, okay, great, I should save my money. I should start early. But where do I learn more? What should I do? Should I just watch TikToks, or what should I do? Right?
I think one is just understanding that the circle of influence that you have may not be the subject matter expert. And at that point in time, reading, taking a look at what resources are available. This is not so much a plug for you, but I know that before you cast anything, you do a lot of research on it. You really empower yourself and you reference many others. So take a look at somebody that's reputable, not somebody that basically is hot for the minute, but really hasn't done much in the past. Take a look at somebody that's reputable, that knows what they're doing, and really take a look at the individuals they're also referencing. Because many times they will reference, look, I got this from this particular author. I got this from this particular resource. And going out and further doing additional research on what they're talking about. I think that's super empowering. But again, just understanding that you may not know all the answers, and you have to go out there and find some. Aside from yourself, aside from Avance Latino, there's a number of different banks that offer financial health education. And take a look at how it's classified, right? Because sometimes there's financial literacy, of course. Some banks will call it something different. They'll call it financial health. So take a look at what banks offer. It might be on their website. It might be through a community outreach that some banks have. But really align yourself with this. Take a look at what it is that they're offering and see how you can apply it in your own personal life. And then I would say beyond that, spread that knowledge with others, because you're going to have individuals in your group of influence that may not really be aligned with this information, may not be really accepting of this information. And honestly, if they were to find out about it 5, 15, 20 years later, they're behind the game. So as you yourself start experiencing the benefit of this financial health education, spread it with others too.
Yeah, we've seen so many success stories of families sharing I was able to save up X amount of money. Now we feel so much better. And then we helped our neighbors or our cousins or friends. And it's just like a snowball effect of just being able to spread the love and spread the education and empowerment, because it's super important. Financial literacy is so important. I feel like I'm a broken record whenever I say that, because it is really important, but it's not there yet. There's so much people that don't know that there's resources, like you said. Of all race, income levels, my previous job, I saw it in every aspect. People making minimum wage, people making over 100K. So it's don't feel bad. Definitely don't feel bad if you lack that financial literacy. It's across the board.
And I'm a product of that, right? My parents were now ones to have that conversation in front of me. My parents had limited knowledge, limited resources. That led to what? That led to my dad passing away last year at 86 years old, and leaving my mom a total of $99 in a small pension fund. That's it. No additional savings, nothing else. Why? Because again, we did not align ourselves with the knowledge, the thirst to say we want to do more financially for ourselves right now and for future generations to create generational wealth. So definitely empower yourself, but spread it to others that are within your circle as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zhemyr. I think this has been a great episode conversation with you. A lot of important topics. We talked about careers, talked about salaries, talked about so many things. I think important things that a lot of people that are going to be watching are going to really be empowered and learn a lot. So thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And for all those watching, be sure to like, subscribe, and reach out to us. We're Avance Latino. We do a lot of workshops with a lot of schools. We have a lot of different partners, and if you want to see Zhemyr, reach out to us. But thank you guys again, and thank you again, Zhemyr.
It's a pleasure being here, man.
Thank you so much.